What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in today's video, we're here on the Pirate Rumble Team Builder, so that we can kind of head and discuss the best Pirate Rumble teams in Rumble right now. Currently, it's the championship. I know people are currently playing, and I know I did see a couple comments saying they wanted to see maybe an updated list now that we've got so many other SugoFest exclusive characters to potentially add to these teams. So in this video, we're talking about the best offensive teams. We are not talking about defensive teams in this video, because I mean, that's a rabbit hole that we could potentially go down, but that's definitely more of a creative side of things in terms of trying to build a really good defense team, because there's so many other things that you have to take into consideration in building a really good defense team that we're not going to be discussing in this video today. We're only talking about offensive capabilities, and just to note, there isn't one offensive team that literally beats everything. There is just not a team that does that, at least not to my knowledge, right? So you do want to try and build multiple PvP teams so you can take on different opponents at once, right? In this video today, we're going to be discussing 4 different teams in Pirate Rumble in terms of offense that are really good, at least in my opinion anyway. If you guys disagree, definitely let me know down below in the comment section. Of course, I'm sure you guys will anyway. But yeah, these 4 teams are really good, at least from what I found. And of course, I don't have every unit in the game, so I can't test everything. One unit in particular that I wish I had my hands on was the Fire Tank Pirates. I also don't have PvP Shiryu, but I know he's really good. I already know what he's able to do. But if a Fire Tank, I don't really know. Like, are they really good offensively? Are they only really good in defense? I wish I was able to try it out. Unfortunately, I can't do that. And of course, you know, there are going to be characters missing in this video that I'm sure a lot of people will leave in the comment section, like Final Tap Law, for example, Bonnie, or even like Whitebeard versus Shanks. And while those characters are good on paper in PvP, offensively, like, they're just okay. I mean, Whitebeard and Shanks are actually pretty good offensively, but those characters that we mentioned are actually really good defense units, and we're not talking about defense teams today. The application in which we're going to be viewing these teams today is the Pirate Rumble Team Builder, and on one of my last videos talking about Pirate Rumble, this person right here called Pie Bandit claims to be one of the devs for the Pirate Rumble database, and he had some help developing the Team Builder, so shout out to Pie Bandit for providing this really awesome application to have a look at today. Alright, so this is going to be the first team in the offensive side of things that I think is still incredibly powerful to this day, but I think some of the other teams have a lot more benefits comparatively to this team. But this is just a run-of-the-mill slasher team that you would normally see on an offensive side of things. Doflamingo is really good because he outputs lots of damage. He has really good defensive effects as well. Like, one of the main reasons why slashers have any form of tankiness is literally because of this unit right here. Roger is a phenomenal unit. We all know how good he is, attacking all enemies for fixed damage and really good debuffs. Then you got Odin, who just hits like an absolute truck, plus CT reduction for your slashes is ridiculous. You got Kizaru, who also provides really good CT reduction, and his cooldown is very low, on a 15 CT to deal 1 times his attack. And especially if you have other characters that can reduce defense, I mean, not really too much on this team, but works well on other teams that are able to reduce defense. Like, his 1 times attack that he can spam very quickly is actually a force to be reckoned with. And then Wano Law, also you've got Odin, you've got Wano, Law, and also Kizaru, all providing CT reduction for slashes. Law specifically is only for your Psy units, so mainly Borsalino and the Roger himself, and also Law. All those 3 in particular get insanely good CT. You see level 15 special CT up for these Psy characters, and Odin has 9, and also Dofi has 9. And I feel like the best character on the bench for these slashes is going to be this Whitebeard. When he eventually comes on, he hits very hard, and you can see that because we have Wano Law, he does also go ahead and say that for the first 40 seconds, he does level 6 CT down, guard rate down, and speed down to Driven and Powerhouse characters. So if you have this slasher team with Wano Law on it, very good against Driven and Powerhouse based teams, like versus Akainu, for example. You see all these different debuffs that it gets inflicted as soon as you start the fight. That's pretty ridiculous to have. And they do a lot of damage, CTs up very quickly. So in terms of defense, they're not the best, but in terms of offense, they are ridiculous. The next offensive team that I want to talk about is the Strength team. Now, I've really come around to the Strength team, and during this PvP season in the Championship, I have actually got this team exactly built. Of course, this is 6+ Jack, which we don't currently have on Global, but just note that the abilities are slightly buffed with the 6+ Jack, but so just know on Global, it's going to be a little bit weaker in terms of the defensive capabilities. I think in the HP, it slightly gets increased as well, so it's not crazy different from what you're seeing here, but the main reason why the Strength team team is so good is because in a lot of instances where I've come up against a slasher team and where I've come up against a dex team, the strength team just somehow just still is able to get the job done, which is quite good. Now, the main key ingredient for making this team very good is obviously the final tap kid. This unit is crazy, right? The fact that his damage that he does bypasses all enemies' defense. It's actually ridiculous. It actually doesn't mention it there. It does 1.5 times his attack, and it doesn't do, yeah, it does it to all enemies in a medium range. The range is actually pretty substantial from what I found, and he also does a defense buff. His CT is quite high as well, so I have this Sanji on the team to increase the CT for the strength unit. It's not like a super amazing unit, but level 3 CT increase is better than nothing. Do note though is that Kid is driven, so if you're up against Wano Law, that's going to be a bit of a problem because that will reduce his CT. We've also got versus Ace here, which is another phenomenal strength unit. Works very well, gives a defense buff plus attack buff, so really good unit to have. Jack, and the combination of Jack and Whitebeard is also another reason why this takes on the Dex team so well. Jack, if you use his special, he does a health cut, and if it's in the first 30 seconds, he does an additional huge health cut, and he also does defense boost to your characters too. But Whitebeard has a really low CT, 23 for a 48% health cut, so you can get a 48% health cut. You can Jack's like, what is it? It's a 15% health cut and then a 30% health cut. It's definitely a little bit less with the regular 6-star form, but with 2 huge health cuts that launch very quickly, you're able to then launch the specials of Ace and the special of Kid, which do so much damage. Specifically Kid, if you're cutting their health by, you know, over 50% at this point and then using Kid's special ability, as long as it hits, that's probably going to kill them in almost any instance, no matter what character it is. So the combination of these units is so good, but obviously one of the big things you can see here is that defensive-wise, not that great. I mean, 17 health is good. Level 5 defense, obviously Jack is going to be buffing that with his 6+ a little bit more, but then again, if you have Whitebeard fall below 30%, you can see the health buff goes up by a pretty substantial portion. So yeah, depending on the situation, yeah, this team is quite good, but of course, the thing about it is defensively not the greatest compared to some of the other teams that we'll talk about in a moment, but this has been a really impressive team that I've loved using so far. The 2 characters on the bench, you know, Law and Kaku, you can shuffle them out for whatever you want at this point. I mean, you can't really put PvP Whitebeard because of this Whitebeard, but you don't specifically need this Whitebeard. I've just found him to be a huge addition to the team. Loved having him on there. It's been a huge buff to have. But you know, you can put whatever you want. You can put PvP Whitebeard on the bench and then replace another unit on the front line. You could definitely do that. If you're up against Dex teams specifically, this PvP Kaku is also pretty good because he does debuff Dex characters specifically, reducing their CT, and also reduces Dex characters' defense for 20 seconds with his special. So you can put him on the front line if you're up against specifically a Dex team, but I do find that the huge health cut from Whitebeard definitely kills them much faster than having Kaku on the team, for example. So yeah, the strength team, really good. Alright, so jumping into the team, we are going to be having the next one, which is the Psy team. I find this team offensively is still very good. In terms of overall damage output, it's not as good as strength, but the things that the Psy team provides, I feel, are just super valuable. You've got really good defenses, level 10 defense, level 11 HP, that's great. Very good CT increase as well. Now for this team, I do have Borsalino here, but I mean, Borsalino can be replaced with like so many other different units. If you really wanted to, and in a lot of instances I've just put Kaido on the team, and even though Kaido isn't specifically a Psy unit, I feel like his self-sufficiency with his passive is good enough to just be chucked on the team. Obviously, he is a driven unit, so if you're up against opposing Wano Law, that's obviously going to be a bit of a problem, but I still find him to be very good, honestly. So that is an option, but of course, you know, Borsalino being a Psy unit, he does get all the buffs from the rest of the characters that you have on your team. Plus, he gives CT reduction to your slashers and your shooter characters, which is every single character on the front line except for Enel. It really does suck that Enel was not a shooter. If he was, this team would be amazing, because then Borsalino would give all the buffs also to Enel. But despite that, it's fine, because look at all the buffs that the team has. Just across the board, very level. I said 11 HP before, that's 11 attack, 5 HP, which is not as good, obviously, but the fact that NL can cycle through so quickly, and you've got these 2 characters with Rebecca and Enel, which can basically debuff any slasher that the enemy has, so that's not really going to be a big problem. Wano Law's great because of debuffing driven units. You can see I've got an enemy Moria on the back lines here. You got the huge the debuffs to those driven characters, which is like really good. Even though Moria with the passive does increase CT, you can see there's still -3 CT, which is really good. Mori is very difficult to get around, by the way. But then we've also got Roger, he's fantastic, and also Borsalino. But then for the backlines, you see that this is supposed to be the PvP Sober Mask, but unfortunately it's actually not on the Rumble database team builder, so we just have the raid one here for now. But ideally, if you have the PvP Sober Mask, you'd put him on the bench, because as time progresses, if he comes on off the bench and there's like less than 40 seconds left, PvP Sober Mask does ridiculous amount of damage with his special ability, and it can help you kind of sweep the rest of the field, so that's nice. But obviously PvP Whitebeard's another really good unit, self-sufficient, does a lot of damage, reduces enemy defense. You love to see all of those, but the side team, it's still really impressive in my eyes. Alright, so now we've got the final offensive team here, and this is just the quick team. This team is so good. Ideally, if you have Shiryu, you want to use him. Unfortunately for myself, I don't actually own Shiryu. So that's a big problem, because Shiryu is such a good unit, his passive giving your quick characters an additional level 3 special CT increase for those 30 seconds. He does attack and HP buff as well, like you can't go wrong here. He really debuffs strength as well with his special, like he's so good. Unfortunately, as I said, I don't own him, so what I currently do is I do use Luffy, the quick one, the new final tap Luffy. He's the unit that I'm using instead of Shiryu for now, but I probably would replace him for Shiryu if I did ever pull him. This Luffy's not bad though, because the combination of Luffy and Magellan is ridiculous, both of which have a special ability that can haste your other quick allies. Now, in so many instances, like it's happened so many times since I've used this team, where you could use like a Magellan special first, and he debuffs the enemy's defense, and then he does his damage, and then he debuffs the defense even further within the first 30 seconds, or 40 seconds it is. When he hastes another character, he has a very high chance of hasting your Kaido or your other Luffy character, and there has been a time where I've used Magellan, debuff defenses, he does damage, he hastes Luffy, Luffy uses his special, he buffs his own attack, so he gets a huge attack buff, the enemies are already reduced defense by like level 6 at this point, he does a huge amount of damage, and then he has a 70% chance of hasting 2 of your quick allies, and then he hastes Kaido, and then Kaido comes in, defense down to the enemy, and he whacks him with his club. And at that point, like, it's pretty much over, and also you've got a Kaido who can also be hasted as well, be put to the top of the order, and if his special is launched within the first 40 seconds, he does a 30% health cut, then he does his damage, and if they've got any strength units, he does an additional 1.5 times damage to those units. The amount of damage that this team can stack super quickly is crazy. Plus, Tezora is like a replaceable unit, but he's a character that enables you to get special CT increase. I mean, at this point, you could probably replace him with Shiryu if you wanted to do that as well, so that you could get CT increase with him. Though the CT increase from Shiryu is not as good as Tezora. You could have Tezora plus Shiryu and replace one of these other characters, but the combination of Magellan and Luffy with haste is pretty interesting. I don't think it's the most broken combo, but when, as I said, if what I said happens, it's just GG. Like, no team can keep up with that pace because of the hasting, putting these characters to the top of the order, especially if their specials are ready to go. It's just a wrap. Like, you can't compete with that. At least not right now anyway. And on the bench, you got Whitebeard. If one of your guys goes down, Whitebeard comes in, he hits really hard, also defense reduction. He can special bind powerhouse characters too. And then you've got Sober Mask. Once again, this should be PvP Sober Mask, but another ridiculous unit that can partner really well with this team. Self-sufficient, does lots of damage when the counter is low. And then look at the defenses, right? Like level 6 defense, level 21 HP. Now this is just with this team combination here. Obviously, as I said before, we'd have typically Tezora to get some CT increase as well. Tezora does a lot of defense at level 16 HP, like really good. Kaido gives himself speed. You got some CT up for a lot of your characters on your team. Like, this is probably the best offensive team in the game, but obviously defense teams can be a bit annoying to take on, and just because you have this team that's really good doesn't mean it can take on every single defensive team in the game. This team will still struggle against a Dex defense team, and they are going to struggle to take them down because their defenses are so incredibly high, and even with haste and all the health cuts that you can potentially do, they're just really, really hard to kill. So with all that being said, guys, that is going to wrap up yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. Definitely let me know down below in the comment section, what kind of offensive teams are you guys running right now? Are there any successful teams you guys have been running that you'd like to share with everyone? Definitely let us know down below in the comment section. And if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you guys want to see potentially another video like this, but exploring defense teams, we could potentially do that. That will be probably a little bit more of an extensive video because you can definitely do more creative things defensively. Depends on the situation, of course, and what kind of units you have, but defense teams I feel like are a little bit more in depth in terms of a lot of the other things you have to take into consideration, but for actually building those teams successfully. But that is going to wrap up this video today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But on that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.